In June of 1941, at the absolute peak of German power in Europe, Adolf Hitler made the most catastrophic decision of his military career. A choice that defied all his most experienced generals. A choice that ignored the most basic lessons of European military history. A choice made not in a moment of desperation, but of absolute triumph. That decision would seal the fate of the Third Reich and would change the course of World War II in an irreversible way. In this video, you will get to know the real facts that led up to this moment, the circumstances that seemed to favor Germany, the warnings that were ignored, the information that Hitler had in his hands when he made this decision. But now, prepare yourself for something different. The real history has already been written, but here at FateFork, it is you who chooses a new ending. We will give you the power to transport yourself to 1941, take command, and make your own decision. At the end of this video, we will present two possible paths that could have been taken at the time, and then you will make your choice. And of course, you will know the consequences and the world that you would create with it. Watch carefully, analyze every detail, because the new ending of this story, who decides, is not the past. It is you. Welcome to FateFork. The Pact and the Trap of Victory. August of 1939, Moscow. The world watches in shock while Nazi Germany and the Communist Soviet Union sign a non-aggression pact. For Hitler and Stalin, it is pure convenience. Hitler gains time to conquer Europe without war on two fronts. Stalin gains territory and time to rebuild an army that he himself had destroyed in the purges of 1937 and 1938. Thousands of officers executed, 3 of the 5 marshals of the Red Army shot. Both knew this pact was temporary. The question was never if, it was when. In September of 1939, Poland disappears, crushed between the two powers. Hitler turns to the west, and in May of 1940 crosses the Ardennes, a forest that the French considered impenetrable. Paris falls in 6 weeks, and here is the trap. The victory was so fast that it created a fatal illusion. The illusion that the Wehrmacht was invincible, that Blitzkrieg could defeat any enemy in weeks. Hitler began to believe in his own propaganda, to ignore advice, to discard objections. But there was a problem. France had 550,000 square kilometers. The Soviet Union had more than 22 million, 40 times bigger. France had paved roads and modern railways. The Soviet Union had dirt trails that turned into mud and unimaginable distances. From Moscow to Vladivostok, more than 9,000 kilometers. But Hitler did not see these differences. He saw weakness. The fatal obsession. November of 1939. The Soviet Union invades Finland, a country with only 3.7 million inhabitants. It should end in weeks. But the Winter War lasted 3 months. The Red Army revealed shocking weaknesses. For each Finnish killed, 5 Soviets died. Hitler watched and concluded that the Soviet Union was a giant with feet of clay. But there was something deeper, ideology. In 1924, Hitler wrote Mein Kampf and made it clear, Lebensraum, living space in the East. For him, invading the Soviet Union was not strategy, it was destiny, the central purpose of the Third Reich. In July of 1940, weeks after the fall of France, Hitler was already planning the East. His generals warned. Guderian saw the new Soviet tanks T-34, superior to the Germans. Von Rundstedt presented reports about impossible distances, brutal climate, inadequate logistics. Hitler discarded all, humiliated those who disagreed, because he genuinely believed in racial superiority, that a German soldier was worth 10 Soviets. Just kick the door, he said, and the whole rotten structure will collapse. But the warnings continued. Richard Sorge sent from Tokyo the exact date, June 22nd. Stalin ignored. Churchill sent diplomatic warnings. Stalin discarded. German soldiers deserted and told everything. Stalin ordered executions, believing them to be provocateurs. And the mobilization continued. 3 million soldiers, 3,000 tanks, 600,000 horses. The largest invasion force in history. But the invasion, planned for May, was postponed to June. 5 weeks lost rescuing Mussolini in Greece. 5 weeks that would become fatal. Because in Russia, each week before winter counts. The invasion and the winter. June 22nd of 1941, 3:15 in the morning. More than 7,000 pieces of artillery open fire. From the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, the border explodes. 3 million Germans advance. In the first days, it seems that Hitler was right. Stalin enters psychological collapse, locks himself in his dacha. In 6 days, Minsk falls. In 5 weeks, almost 1 million prisoners captured. Hitler celebrates. But then, something changes. The Red Army does not collapse, retreats, implements scorched earth, but continues fighting. Stalin recovers and appeals to Russian nationalism, compares Hitler to Napoleon. The Soviet people respond, and the Wehrmacht faces unforeseen problems. Roads turn into mud, tanks get stuck. Soviet railways use different gauges, German trains do not work. Supply lines reach 1,500 kilometers. Fuel does not arrive. Ammunition does not arrive. In September, Hitler orders that the advance on Moscow stop, wants to capture Kiev first. His generals protest. Moscow is the center. If we capture Moscow, the war can end. Hitler disagrees. Kiev falls, 600,000 prisoners. But the price is time. 2 months lost. When the offensive on Moscow resumes, it is October, and the mud returns. But the Wehrmacht continues. In November, they reach 30 kilometers from the Kremlin. Soldiers see the towers through binoculars, but they cannot advance because the winter arrived. Minus 40 degrees. Soldiers without winter uniforms. Hitler was convinced that it would finish before November. Thousands die frozen. Tanks do not start. Weapons jam. And the Red Army counterattacks. On December 5th, Stalin launches a massive offensive with fresh troops from Siberia. For the first time in the war, the Wehrmacht retreats. It is the end of the illusion. Germany lost its only advantage, speed. Now it was trapped in a war of attrition that it could not win. June of 1941. Adolf Hitler is at the peak of his power. Western Europe is under his control. France defeated. Great Britain isolated. Only the Soviet Union remains as a continental threat. Hitler then decides to act. And here is the decision that changed World War II forever. Hitler authorizes Operation Barbarossa, the largest military operation in history. He did not yet know, but with this decision, Hitler himself decreed the beginning of the end. 3 million soldiers, 3,000 tanks, 7,000 pieces of artillery, the biggest bet of the Third Reich. And in the first months, it seems to work. Cities fall, entire armies surrounded. The Wehrmacht advances hundreds of kilometers. But the Soviet Union does not collapse. It retreats, burns everything, and continues fighting. The winter arrives, and with it, the brutal reality that Hitler ignored. Russia is not France, cannot be conquered in 6 weeks. The distances are too large, the resources too vast, the will to resist too strong. The offensive to 30 kilometers from the Kremlin, but does not advance more. The cold paralyzes the German army, and for the first time, the Wehrmacht retreats. The war changes nature, becomes a war of brutal attrition, a war that Germany cannot win. Because the Soviet Union has strategic depth, can retreat 1,000 kilometers and still exist, can move entire factories, can absorb losses that would destroy any other country. In the following years, the Eastern Front becomes the largest slaughterhouse in history. Stalingrad, 1942 to 1943. The German 6th Army surrounded and destroyed. More than 300,000 soldiers lost. Kursk, 1943. The last great German offensive. Ends in failure. The Wehrmacht permanently on the defensive. 1944, Operation Bagration. The Red Army destroys Army Group Center, the greatest German defeat of the war. 1945, Soviet tanks enter Berlin. Hitler commits suicide. The war ends with the Soviet flag over the Reichstag. Operation Barbarossa destroyed the Third Reich, did not destroy the Soviet Union, destroyed Germany, and shaped the post-war world. The Soviet Union emerged as a superpower, controlled Eastern Europe for 45 years. The Cold War was born from this invasion. This was the real path. This was the consequence of the decision taken. But now, stop here. You know the result that history recorded. You know how this decision shaped the destiny of Hitler, of Germany, of Europe, and of the world. You know that it led to the death of more than 25 million Soviets, more than 4 million German soldiers, destroyed entire cities, devastated nations, changed the balance of global power. But now, time freezes. If you were there in June of 1941, with the same power, the same information, the same pressures that Hitler had, with Western Europe conquered, with Great Britain isolated but resisting, with generals warning about risks, but with the belief that the Red Army was weak, with the ideology demanding expansion to the east, and without guarantee of which path would lead to victory, would you make the same decision that Hitler made? Or, choice A, would keep the pact with Stalin and consolidate Europe, means not to invade. Maintain the pact while possible, focus everything on defeating Great Britain first, and deal with Stalin later. This path avoids war on two fronts, but creates something that no one expected. Or then, the choice B. That would be to break the pact, but with a limited campaign. This means to invade, but without trying to conquer everything. Only strategic objectives: Ukraine, oil of the Caucasus, avoid Moscow, force Stalin to negotiate. This path seems more rational, but history has other ideas. Hitler chose the total invasion, and that choice destroyed the Third Reich. But now, the decision is not from the past, it is yours. Would you make the same choice that he made? Or, in his place, would follow another path? Option A, or option B. History showed what happened. Now, find out what happens with your decision. Choose a path here on the screen, and if you want, leave in the comments which was your choice and why. And if this experience made sense for you, supporting the video helps this project to continue existing. See you in the world that you decided to explore.